Extroverted feeling uses mirror neurons, which have been found in the premotor cortex, the supplementary motor area, the primary somatosensory cortex, and the parietal cortex. Mirror neurons are brain cells that reacts both when a particular action is performed and when it is only observed. Mirroring, also known as Gauch's reaction, is a nonverbal technique where a person copies the body language, vocal qualities, or attitude of another person. It is done subconsciously where the person is unaware they are even doing it. Many articles will tell you that this can indicate interest or even attraction for the other person. I can personally tell you that this is a false premise. Though some may be attracted to another and display mirroring at the same time, mirroring does not mean the person is interested or attracted to the other person. Mirroring or Gauch's reaction is simply when you are able to put yourself into another person's perspective and be in sync with them. You are vibing with them on the same frequency or energy wavelength they are on. But unless they are also able to reciprocate this mirroring, the other person will not have their perspective experienced by the other party, and they will feel unseen. I can tell you on so many occasions where my FE parent starts mirroring like a mofo without me even realizing it, until I catch myself doing it later on. All the while, my personal thoughts and feelings could be in stark contrast. I think this is maybe why so many people experience a close bond with me, yet I don't feel a close bond to them at all. Perhaps it is the reason many of my close friends are also FE users, because we are all able to take ourselves out of the equation and see from each other's perspective, thus forming a close bond and understanding, even if we don't agree. Mirroring and mimicking are not the same thing. However, they use the same mirror neurons to create the same effect. Mirroring or Gauch's reaction is subconsciously done. Mimicking or imitating is consciously and intentionally done. This can be to create good rapport, either to form harmonious relationships through networking or to intentionally manipulate another individual to trust you. Your intentions play a major role here. Mimicking is often a strategy taught to salespeople. I generally dislike most salespeople because of this intentional manipulation that they use. However, I'm quite good at noticing an authentic mirror versus a fabricated mimic and can spot the salespeople that truly get behind their product and don't have to use manipulation to make a sale. I will gladly make a purchase from them, assuming I want and/or need the product myself. Conscious imitation is also used for learning. For example, children use mirror neurons to learn how to walk, talk, eat, etc. They are observing their parents and other people's actions around them, and then through imitation, learn to do it themselves. Right now, masks are hindering children's ability to learn. They are unable to see mouths move to help them learn how to speak, and they are unable to see facial expressions to understand emotions. The masks are going to cause and have already caused major issues with children and their development. Conscious imitation is how I learn best. I observe what someone does and how they do it, and then I can repeat it. While high SE users prefer to figure things out for themselves by doing, I prefer to watch them and then imitate them. If I'm also able to watch them figure it out, I can understand why I need to do something a certain way, and if something is crucial for the end result, or simply a preference. Whereas if you handed me a piece of paper with detailed instructions and nothing else, I will do my best at following them, but will not be certain if I did it correctly. I would prefer to at least see a picture of what the end result should look like if you aren't there to show me or demonstrate. I would be known as a visual learner. I just thought of a funny thing about myself. I don't like menus without pictures. I typically purchase something that looks appetizing. Anyways, off topic, let's get back to feelings. An international team led by researchers at Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York has for the first time shown that one area of the brain called the anterior insular cortex is the activity center of human empathy, whereas other areas of the brain are not. The study is published in the September 2012 issue of the journal Brain. Empathy, the ability to perceive and share another person's emotional state, has been described by philosophers and psychologists for centuries. In the past decade, however, scientists have used powerful functional MRI imaging to identify several regions of the brain that are associated with empathy for pain. This most recent study, however, firmly establishes that the anterior insular cortex is where the feeling of empathy originates. The insular cortex, in particular its most anterior portion, or front portion of the cortex, is considered a limbic-related cortex. The anterior insular cortex is believed to be responsible for emotional feelings, including maternal and romantic love, anger, fear, sadness, happiness, sexual arousal, disgust, aversion, unfairness, inequity, indignation, uncertainty, disbelief, social exclusion, trust, empathy, sculptural beauty, a state of union with God, and hallucinogenic states. According to A.D. Bud Craig in his 2009 paper, How Do You Feel Now? The Anterior Insula in Human Awareness. Now that you understand how extroverted feeling works, you can see why people explain the function as connecting and considering others to meet their needs and honor their values. It is about maintaining societal, organizational, or group values for harmony and maintaining good rapport. It is adjusting to and accommodating others because you can experience from their perspective. This is what ethics is all about. Ethics is a set of moral principles relating to or affirming a specified group, field, or form of conduct. It is used to create an environment where everyone can conduct themselves accordingly to maintain a civilized, productive, and harmonious environment. According to Beebe, extroverted feeling is affirming by validating for the purpose of relating. Moving on to introverted feeling. In Stephen Stosny, PhD's article, The Power to Create Value and Meaning for Psychology Today, wrote that the prefrontal cortex, or adult brain, specializes in analysis, sensitivity to the perspectives of others, evidence-based judgment, decision-making, and regulating of impulses, emotions, and behavior. It continually appraises environmental cues and organizes information to reconcile those appraisals with internal experience, thoughts, sensations, emotions, and impulses in a process known as reality testing. It then decides on behavior consistent with learned preferences, prejudices, and/or deeper values. The strongest internal signals to which the prefrontal cortex must apply reality testing are emotions. Hence, the adult brain must interpret emotional signals. This is how I feel. It must test them against environmental cues. There is something in the environment making me feel this way, or there isn't. It's a false alarm. It must weigh preferences. This is what I like. It must weigh deeper values. This is most important to me. And it must regulate the emotional signals and decide a course of action. This is what I will do. Myelinization isn't complete until the second decade of life. Myelin is the substance that lines nerve fibers to protect and insulate neurons. It aids in the quick and accurate transmission of electrical current, carrying data from one nerve cell to the next. Much of the prefrontal cortex isn't functionally online much before the second decade of life. The downside of late maturity in the adult brain is that it comes online after the toddler brain has already formed habits of coping with the alarms it raises, mostly through blame, denial, and avoidance. Many adult brain interpretations and explanations are influenced by those habits, which lowers the accuracy of its reality testing and impairs its ability to make viable judgments. To the extent that toddler brain habits are reinforced in adulthood, the adult brain looks to justify the alarm, rather than testing it with appraisals of environmental cues. This confusion of alarm with reality is what makes toddler brain alarms self-validating. If I'm angry at you, you must be doing something wrong. If I'm anxious, you must be threatening, rejecting, or manipulative. The result is usually self-fulfilling prophecy, due to emotional reciprocity. Other people are bound to react negatively to your negativity. Fortunately, the adult brain has the power to override toddler brain habits and intentionally develop new ones that serve long-term best interests. The first step is to change the way we regard the negative feelings of the toddler brain. All alarm systems, negative feelings included, are calibrated to give false positives. You don't want a smoke alarm that doesn't go off until the house is in flames. You want it to go off when there's just a little smoke, even if that means it occasionally gets triggered when someone is cooking or having a cigarette. The toddler brain functions as if the smoke alarm is the fire, instead of a signal that a fire might possibly exist. That's like hearing a smoke alarm and screaming, "We're all going to die!" We actually come close to that level of error by assuming that toddler brain emotional alarms represent certain reality. The adult brain reacts to smoke alarms by checking out the signal to see if there really is a fire or just something cooking. If there is a fire, the focus is on putting it out rather than reacting in panic, trying to ignore it, or blaming it on someone else. In the adult brain, we pay attention to feelings as important signals, but don't validate them as reality. Negative feelings must be regulated with reality checks. Is there really a fire? And plans for improvement. Put out the fire. Reality testing, appraisal, calculations, judgment, and self-regulation are the tools of the adult brain. Introverted feeling is the function responsible for fight or flight decisions. After the fight or flight response gets triggered in the introverted sensing function. If you remember, introverted sensing is essentially your limbic system and is the part of the brain that receives the signals first. This would be the downstairs brain, or the toddler brain as Stephen Stosny referred to it. Introverted feeling is located in the prefrontal cortex, or the upstairs brain, or the adult brain, and doesn't receive the signal until after it goes through the limbic system. The speed of transmission from the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex increases as the myelinization process comes to completion. This is one reason why our emotional decision-making as children and teenagers isn't great. We need this process to be complete to make better decisions as adults. This is the process of maturing emotionally. So when introverted sensing is experiencing fear, anxiety, hostility, nerves, etc., before you act on those emotions that are triggering your fire alarm, aka fight or flight system, take a breath and let your introverted feeling do a true assessment of the situation through reality testing. Please note that even if you are experiencing a feeling, it doesn't necessarily mean it is correct. As Stephen Stasny mentioned, as adults, we are prone to confirming our introverted sensing rather than truly testing it for validity. This is the difference between reacting versus responding. Over Christmas, I had the joy of being on the receiving end of my sister's introverted sensing function. I surprised everyone by coming home for Christmas. This was supposed to be a wonderful experience. However, she was rather anxious by my surprise arrival because she hadn't prepared herself, meaning she was concerned about our differences in viewpoints on the lovely virus going around and snapped at me, even though I didn't do anything wrong, nor did I bring up the virus. She was actually being attacked by her own brain through negative thoughts, fears, and worries. Unfortunately, I wasn't prepared for the snap she gave me and didn't respond well myself, thus resulting in her self-fulfilling prophecy of things going poorly. Had I been thinking about functions, I probably would have let everyone know rather than try to create a wonderful experience by surprising them. That's what I get for living in a household that is mostly introverted sensors. But I, too, needed to take a breath and respond rather than react. Introverted feeling is described as valuing and considering importance and worth. It is reviewing for incongruity. It is evaluating something based on the truths on which it is based. It is clarifying values to achieve accord. It is deciding if something is of significance and worth standing up for. It is also associated with sympathy, where you can understand how someone feels because you yourself have experienced it before, which is different from empathy, where you can understand without ever having to experience it. According to Beebe, introverted feeling is appraising by judging for the purpose of establishing value. It is where you establish your morals and determine what you think is right or wrong. This function is why some people simply see others as a tool to be used, because they don't recognize the intrinsic value of a human life, and why you may not see your own value or self-worth, especially if you have been rejected by others or continue to reject yourself for the sake of valuing others over yourself. And if you believe you are just a tool, you can end up thinking you are worthless and not worthy of someone else's time, energy, and love, unless you are being used. I believe everyone has intrinsic value. It is a God-given value, and no one is worthless, not even my greatest enemy. You do not need to do anything to be deserving of love. In a world where it's either use or be used, what I think tends to go against the narrative and gets dismissed. People say things like, they need to earn my trust first, or after they show me who they are, then I'll open up and show them who I am. These are things people with fear say, usually because someone else hurt them in the past. These are people telling themselves that they are being logical, when in fact, they are rationalizing their fear. You need to learn to forgive the person that hurt you, and face the fear of getting hurt again by putting yourself out there. We need to follow the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. If you want someone to be honest with you, you need to be honest with them. If you want loyalty from others, you need to be loyal to them. It's a very simple concept. We also need to learn unconditional love. That means loving without expectations and conditions. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongdoings. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. You cannot love in fear. Let's use an allegorical example to explain the feeling functions. A man and his wife traveled to the zoo. They found a monkey that played passionately with his female. His wife told him, "What a romance!" Then they found a lion and his lioness separated from each other. The lion silent and alone in his corner as if the lioness did not exist. His wife told him, "What a sad scene without love." Her husband then told her, "Throw that stone at the lioness and watch." When she threw it down, the lion leaped roaring to defend his lioness. They saw the monkeys again and she did the same by throwing a stone. The monkey then jumped and abandoned his female to save his hide. Her husband tells her later, "Do not be fooled by what you see as romanticism in some. Many times it is a deceptive appearance that hides an empty heart. There are others, on the contrary, who do not show anything, but their hearts are full of sincere love." I can easily interpret two meanings from this story. The first is probably more obvious. Men, this is a generalization, not the rule, are typically not prone to showing their emotions. However, they have very strong feelings that lie within themselves. Women, please learn to recognize their feelings through other means than emotions. They do show you how they feel all the time. It is through opening the door for you, providing for you by paying the tab, and walking on the side closest to the street on a sidewalk. Signs of a man being a gentleman towards you are signs that he values you. However, this can also be a front to get into your pants, aka the monkey. You can determine the difference between these two types of men, a lion or a monkey, when a rock is thrown. The lion will stick around and the monkey will bolt when things hit a snag. Every relationship is bound to have disagreements. Those that truly care will stick around to work them out. Those that don't, assuming they aren't fleeing from their feelings, won't bother because they're just there to have fun. The other meaning I take from this story is the difference between extroverted feeling and introverted feeling, where the monkey is FE and the lion is FI. Extroverted feeling is outwardly displaying signs of affection and/or creating harmony and will make you feel valuable by affirming your values. Introverted feeling is the lion, waiting in the background, doing its own thing, not caring about what others are doing until their values are attacked. Once their values are attacked, the lion waiting behind FI will come out to defend their values. In order for a functioning society, we need to be monkeys. However, to be our authentic selves, we need to be lions. The real trick is to know when it is wise and best to use which one, as we need to use both, just like all the other functions. Overvaluing any one function over another will result in an imbalance. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it.